The alarm bells rang through the cargo ship UES Harrison as red lights flashed in every hallway. Captain Jake Sullivan ran to the bridge, his boots making loud sounds on the metal floor. He had been a ship captain for 15 years, but his heart still beat fast when danger came. "Report," Sullivan said as he reached his command chair. The bridge was small and old, with screens that sometimes worked and sometimes did not. The Harrison was not a warship. It was just a transport ship carrying people who needed new homes. Lisa Carter looked up from her communication station. Her face was pale and her hands shook a little. 12 ships coming at us fast, Captain. They look like Veilthic raiders. Sullivan felt his stomach drop. Everyone in space knew about the Veilthic Dominion. They were aliens who looked like tall lizards with gray skin and yellow eyes that never blinked. For 300 years, they had taken ships and cargo in this part of space. No one could stop them. Their ships were fast, and their weapons were strong. "How far away are they?" Sullivan asked. 20 minutes at their current speed, said Ben Foster from the sensor station. He was young, maybe 25 years old, and this was his first trip to the outer rim of space. "Captain, there are so many of them." Sullivan looked at the main screen. 12 silver ships moved toward them like hungry sharks. Each ship was 3 times bigger than the Harrison. The alien ships had smooth lines and glowing blue engines. They looked beautiful and deadly at the same time. "What do we have for protection?" Sullivan asked. "2 destroyers and 6 fighters," Lisa said. "The UES Denver and the US Atlanta are old ships. Captain, their weapons are 20 years behind Veilthic technology." Sullivan nodded. He knew this already, but he had to ask. The 2 human destroyers were good ships with brave crews, but they were not built for this kind of fight. The fighters were even older and carried only small missiles. Behind him, the door to the bridge opened. Dr. Amy Rodriguez walked in. She was the ship's doctor, but she also helped take care of the refugees. Her face looked worried. "Captain, we have 800 people in the cargo bays," she said. "Families with children, old people who are sick. They left Earth because of the war on Centauri. They have nowhere else to go." Sullivan looked at her, and then at his crew. These people trusted him to keep them safe. The families below trusted him to get them to their new homes on the frontier worlds. But 12 Veilthic warships were coming, and he had almost nothing to fight them with. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Sullivan told Lisa. "Tell them we need help right now." Lisa's fingers moved over her console. After a few seconds, she shook her head. "The Veilthic ships are jamming all our communications, Captain. Nothing is getting through." Sullivan felt cold inside. The aliens were smart. They always blocked communications first so no one could call for help. Then they would demand that the human ship surrender. If the humans said no, the aliens would attack with everything they had. "Captain," Ben said from his station, "the alien ships are slowing down. They are making a circle around us." On the main screen, Sullivan watched the Veilthic ships move into position. They spread out so the Harrison could not run in any direction. It was like being surrounded by wolves. Suddenly, the communication system made a loud noise, then a voice spoke in broken English. The voice sounded like stones grinding together. "Human ship, this is Captain Zex-High of the Veilthic Dominion. You will surrender now. Give us your cargo and your people. Do this and we will let your crew live." Sullivan picked up the communication device. His voice was steady even though his hands wanted to shake. "This is Captain Sullivan of the UES Harrison. We carry refugees, not cargo. These are families looking for new homes. Let us pass." The alien voice laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal breaking. "All humans are valuable, Captain Sullivan. Your people will work in our mines until they die. Your ship will join our fleet. You have 10 minutes to decide." The communication ended. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship's engines. Sullivan looked at his crew. Lisa was staring at her hands. Ben was watching the alien ships on his screen. Dr. Rodriguez stood near the door, thinking about the families below. "Captain," Ben said quietly, "what do we do?" Sullivan sat in his command chair and thought. He could surrender and hope the aliens would keep their word about letting the crew live. But he knew that Veilthic raiders never kept their promises. The refugees would be slaves. His crew would probably die anyway. He could try to fight. The two destroyers and the fighters would do their best, but 12 veil-thick warships would destroy them in minutes. Everyone would die. Or he could try something else. Before the aliens had jammed their communications, Sullivan had sent one message. It was not to Fleet Command. It was to someone else. Someone who might be listening in the dark space. Between the stars, we wait, Sullivan said. Wait for what? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Sullivan looked at the alien ships on the screen. We wait and see if the message got through. What message? Lisa asked. But Sullivan did not answer. He had sent a simple code on an emergency frequency. 3 numbers that meant one thing: human civilians in danger. If anyone was listening, if anyone was close enough to help, they would come. The question was whether they would come in time. The minutes passed slowly. The alien ships moved closer. Sullivan could see their weapons turning toward the Harrison. Soon, Captain HFY would get tired of waiting. Soon, the shooting would start. But somewhere in the darkness of space, something might be moving. Something that the Veilthic Dominion had never seen before. Something that would change everything. Sullivan held onto this hope as the alien ships came closer and time ran out. 3 hours had passed since the Veilthic ships surrounded the Harrison. Captain Jake Sullivan sat in his command chair, watching the alien vessels move slowly round his ship. The raiders were taking their time, like cats playing with a mouse. Before the kill, Captain, Lisa Carter said from her station, "The aliens are sending another message." The harsh voice of Captain HFY filled the bridge again. "Human Captain, your time is over. We grow tired of waiting. Prepare to be boarded." Sullivan picked up the communication device. "We need more time to prepare our people for surrender." "No more time," the alien voice said. "Our ships are moving into attack position now. If you resist, everyone dies quickly. If you cooperate, some may live longer." The communication ended. Sullivan looked at his crew. They all knew what those words meant. The aliens would take what they wanted and kill the rest. On the main screen, the 12 Veilthic ships began to change their formation. They moved closer to the Harrison, their weapons charging with blue light. The 2 human destroyers, Denver and Atlanta, tried to position themselves between the aliens and the transport ship. "Captain," Ben Foster said from his sensor station. His voice was shaking. "The destroyers are ordering us to run. They say they will try to hold off the aliens." Sullivan knew it was hopeless. The 2 old destroyers could not stop 12 modern warships, but the brave crews would try anyway. That was what humans did. They fought even when they could not win. "All fighters launch." Sullivan ordered. "Tell them to stay close to the Harrison." 6 small fighters flew out from the destroyers. They were tiny compared to the alien ships, but their pilots were skilled and brave. Sullivan watched them take positions around his ship like guard dogs protecting their family. Captain HFY's flagship moved toward the Harrison. The alien ship was beautiful in a deadly way. Its silver hull reflected the light of distant stars. Weapon ports opened along its sides like hungry mouths. "Captain," Ben said suddenly. His voice was different now, confused. He was staring at his sensor screen and pushing buttons. "Something is wrong with my equipment." "What do you mean?" Sullivan asked. "One of the alien ships just disappeared from my screen," Ben said. He hit his console with his hand. "The sensors must be broken." Lisa looked at her own screen. "I show 11 ships too, Captain. Maybe one of them moved behind another one." But Sullivan felt something cold in his stomach. He had been in space for a long time. He had learned to trust his feelings when something was not right. "Ben, run a full sensor sweep," he ordered. "Check everything." Ben worked at his station for 2 minutes. Then he looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, there really are only 11 ships now. The one on the far right is gone." "Gone where?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. She had stayed on the bridge to monitor the refugees below. "I don't know," Ben said. "It was there. And now it's not. No explosion. No energy readings. It just vanished." On the alien flagship, Captain HFY was having the same problem. His crew was reporting that one of their ships had stopped responding. The ship called Deathbringer had been on the outer edge of their formation. Now it was gone. "Find that ship," HFY ordered his crew. The alien captain had never lost a ship without knowing why. It made him angry and worried at the same time, but before his crew could answer, another ship disappeared. The veil-thick vessel Starpier simply stopped existing. One moment it was there on the sensors. The next moment there was only empty space. "Captain," Ben said on the Harrison's bridge, "another. One is gone. 10 ships now." Sullivan stood up from his chair. This was not equipment failure. Something was out there in the darkness. Something was hunting the aliens. All stations. "Full alert," Sullivan ordered. "Something is happening." The remaining veil-thick ships began to panic. They broke their neat formation and started moving in random directions. Their weapons were firing into empty space, trying to hit an enemy they could not see. Captain HFY screamed orders at his crew, but fear was spreading through his fleet like a disease. The veil-thick Dominion had ruled this part of space for 3 centuries. Nothing had ever challenged them before. Now something was picking off their ships one by one, and they could not fight back against an enemy they could not find. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "what do you think is out there?" Sullivan did not answer right away. He was thinking about the message he had sent before the aliens jammed their communications. It was a simple emergency code that went out on a frequency that most people did not monitor. But some people did. Special people with special ships. A third veil-thick ship vanished. Then a fourth. The alien fleet was falling apart as panic took hold. Ships were firing at shadows and running into each other trying to escape an invisible hunter. "Captain," Ben said. His voice was full of wonder and fear. "I'm picking up something on the deep sensors. It's moving through the asteroid field behind us." "What kind of something?" Sullivan asked. "I don't know," Ben said. "It's big, but the signal keeps fading in and out, like it's not really there." Sullivan walked to Ben's station and looked at the sensor screen. There was something out there, hiding in the rocks and ice of the asteroid field. Something that moved like a ghost and struck like lightning. The 5th veil-thick ship disappeared. Captain HFY's voice came over the communication system, but now he was not talking to the humans. He was screaming at his own ships in his alien language. Sullivan could not understand the words, but he knew the sound of fear. "Captain," Dr. Rodriguez said softly, "what did you do? What message did you send?" Sullivan looked at her, and then at his crew. "I sent a code that means human civilians are in danger. I sent it on a frequency that only certain people monitor." "What people?" Lisa asked. Before Sullivan could answer, the 6th veil-thick ship vanished from the sensors. The remaining aliens were now running in all directions, trying to escape something they could not see or understand. "People who protect us," Sullivan said. "People who make sure that anyone who threatens human families learns to regret it." In the darkness between the stars, something was moving closer. Something that had been watching and waiting for the perfect moment to show the veil-thick Dominion why threatening human refugees was a very bad idea. The space around the Harrison became very quiet. 7 veil-thick ships had vanished without a trace. The remaining 5 alien vessels moved in scared circles, their weapons pointing in all directions. Captain HFY's voice could be heard over the communication system, shouting orders that his crew could barely follow. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on his bridge, watching the chaos on his main screen. His crew was silent, waiting for something to happen. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. "Captain," Ben Foster whispered from his sensor station. "Something big is moving out there. It's coming from the asteroid field." Sullivan walked over to look at Ben's screen. There was a contact moving toward them, but it appeared and disappeared like a ghost. The sensors could not get a clear reading on it. "How big?" Sullivan asked. "Maybe 800 meters long," Ben said. "But Captain, that's impossible. Nothing that big could hide from our sensors." Lisa Carter looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings on all frequencies. It's like something is bending radio waves around itself." Before Sullivan could respond, the space in front of them began to change. The stars seemed to twist and move. Reality itself looked like it was being folded. Then it appeared. The ship that emerged from nothingness was like a piece of the night sky given form. Its hull was so black that it seemed to swallow light itself. No reflection came from its surface. No lights showed where windows or weapon ports might be. It was a shadow, made solid, a ghost made real. "Dear God," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. She had never seen anything like it. The black ship was smaller than the Veilthic vessels, but it moved with a grace that made the alien ships look clumsy. It turned without seeming to use engines. It accelerated without visible thrust. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain," Ben said, his voice full of fear and wonder. "I can barely detect it even when I'm looking right at it. What is that thing?" Sullivan felt his heart beat faster. He knew what this was even, though he had never seen one before. There were stories, whispers among ship captains who had served in the deep space territories. Stories about human ships that could disappear and reappear at will. Ships crewed by people who specialized in making problems go away. "That," Sullivan said quietly, "is why I sent the message on the alien flagship." Captain Zexhai stared at the black ship with his yellow eyes wide with terror. In 300 years of raiding, he had never seen anything like it. His crew was silent, afraid to speak or move. "What is it?" one of his officers asked in their harsh language. "I don't know," Zexhai replied, "but it killed 7 of our ships without us even seeing it." The black ship hung in space like a predator watching its prey. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it moved. The ship did not accelerate like normal vessels. One moment it was far away. The next moment it was right next to the nearest Veilthic cruiser. Weapons appeared on its hull like magic, glowing with a soft blue light that hurt to look at. The first shot came without warning. A beam of energy struck the alien ship and passed completely through its shields as if they were not there. The beam did not explode or burn. Instead, it simply turned off the alien ship's engines and weapons. The Veilthic vessel went dark and began to drift helplessly in space. Impossible. Captain Zexhai breathed. His shields were the best in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to pass through them so easily. The black ship moved to the next alien vessel. Again, a single beam of energy struck through the shields and disabled the ship. The weapon was precise, surgical. It took away the aliens' ability to fight without killing them. Inside the black ship, Captain Ryan Murphy sat in his command chair watching the operation unfold. His bridge was different from normal human ships. The walls were covered with screens and displays that showed information in ways that seemed impossible. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. "Target 3 disabled, Captain," said Amy Rodriguez. From her weapons station, she was not related to the doctor on the Harrison, but she shared the same calm professionalism. "All crew aboard the alien vessel are alive, good," Murphy said. His voice was soft, but carried complete authority. "Continue with the plan. Disable them all but leave survivors." Chris Taylor, the navigation officer, made the ship appear next to another Veilthic cruiser. The movement was so smooth that it seemed like the universe moved around them instead of them moving through it. Another precise shot disabled the 3rd alien ship. Then the 4th. The black ship moved like a dancer, appearing and disappearing around the remaining Veilthic vessels. Captain Zexhai realized what was happening. The human ship was not trying to destroy them. It was toying with them, showing them how helpless they were. This was worse than death. This was humiliation. All ships attacked the human vessel. He ordered desperately, "Focus all weapons on it." The remaining Veilthic ships turned their weapons toward the black ship and fired everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew through space where the human vessel had been. But it was no longer there. The black ship appeared behind Zexhai's flagship. A single shot disabled his engines and weapons. His proud warship became just another piece of floating metal. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez said from her weapons station, "all alien vessels are disabled. No casualties on either side." Captain Murphy nodded. The operation had taken less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to defeat a fleet that had terrorized this part of space for centuries. "Open a channel to the Harrison," Murphy ordered. On Sullivan's bridge, Lisa Carter looked up in surprise. "Captain, we're getting a message from the black ship." A voice came through the speakers. It was calm and professional, with a slight accent that Sullivan could not place. "UES Harrison, "This is Captain Murphy. Are your people safe?" Sullivan picked up his communication device with shaking hands. "This is Captain Sullivan. We're all safe thanks to you. Who are you?" There was a pause. Then the voice answered. "We're the people who make sure families get home safely, Captain. Continue on your course. These raiders won't bother anyone again." The black ship began to fade from view, becoming transparent like a ghost. "Wait," Sullivan called. "What ship are you? What's your name?" The voice came back one last time, already sounding distant. "We don't have names, Captain. We're just shadows in the dark. But if you must call us something, call us Justice." The black ship vanished completely, leaving only empty space and 5 disabled Veilthic vessels drifting helplessly among the stars. Captain HFY floated in the command chair of his disabled flagship. All around him, his crew worked desperately to restore power to their systems. Emergency lights cast red shadows on their gray faces. The proud warship that had terrorized merchant vessels for decades was now nothing more than a metal coffin drifting in space. Report. HFY demanded, his voice shaking with rage and fear. "All weapons systems are dead." His weapons officer replied, "Engines will not respond. Life support is running on backup power only." HFY looked at the main screen, which still worked on emergency power. He could see his other 4 ships, floating helplessly nearby. Each one had been disabled by a single shot from the human vessel. In 3 centuries of raiding, nothing like this had ever happened to the Veilthic Dominion, sir. His communication officer said quietly, "The human ship is still out there. Our sensors cannot detect it, but I can feel it watching us." The alien captain knew what his officer meant, even though they could not see the black ship. They all knew it was still there, waiting, watching, like a predator deciding what to do with wounded prey. On the UES Harrison, Captain Jake Sullivan watched the disabled alien ships on his main screen. The immediate danger was over, but he felt no relief. Something about the way the black ship had handled the situation made him nervous. "Captain," Ben Foster said from his sensor station, "I'm detecting movement around the alien ships. Small craft are launching from somewhere." Sullivan squinted at the screen. "Where are they coming from?" "I can't tell," Ben replied. "They just appear next to the alien ships, like they're materializing out of nothing." Lisa Carter looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions between the small craft. They're speaking English, but it's on a military frequency I've never heard before." Dr. Rodriguez moved closer to the main screen. "What are they doing to the aliens?" The answer came soon enough. Small, dark shuttles were docking with each disabled Veilthic vessel. The shuttles were as hard to see as the main ship had been, appearing as shadows against the stars inside the alien flagship. HFY heard his crew shouting in alarm. Something had attached itself to their hull. The ship's internal sensors showed figures moving through their corridors, but the readings made no sense. The intruders seemed to phase in and out of existence. "Secure all decks," HFY ordered. "Arm all crew members. Prepare to repel boarders." But it was too late. The boarding parties moved through the ship like ghosts. Veilthic warriors found themselves facing humans who appeared from now here and disappeared just as quickly. The aliens' weapons passed harmlessly through empty air while stun beams struck them down. From impossible angles, Karen White led one of the boarding teams through the alien ship. She was a security chief who specialized in operations that officially did not exist. Her team moved with practiced efficiency, stunning alien crew members and securing key areas of the ship. "Bridge secured," she reported into her communication device. "Alien captain is conscious and unharmed." "Copy that," came the reply from Tony Adams, the engineering chief who was leading another team. "Engine room is ours. Their power systems are more primitive than we expected." In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Helen Brooks worked with her team to ensure the stunned aliens would recover. Without permanent damage, each alien was scanned and treated, their vital signs monitored carefully. The humans were precise in everything. They did. Captain Murphy's voice came through all team communication devices. "Remember, we want survivors to carry the message. Make sure they all live to tell this story." Back on the alien flagship's bridge, Captain HFY found himself surrounded by humans who had appeared like magic. They wore black armor that seemed to bend light around it. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that reflected his image back at him. One of the humans stepped forward and removed her helmet. Karen White looked at the alien captain with cold blue eyes. Her voice was calm and professional. "Captain HFY of the Veilthic Dominion," she said, "you are charged with threatening human civilians. By the authority of Earth's Deep Space Protection Service, you are under arrest." HFY stared at her. "What are you? How did you find us so easily?" Karen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We've been tracking your fleet for months, Captain. Every ship you've attacked, every cargo you've stolen, every life you've taken. We know everything about you." "Impossible," the alien captain said. "The Dominion controls this sector. No human ships patrol here." "You're right," Karen replied. "No human ships patrol here. We don't patrol. We hunt." Around the bridge, her team worked with quiet efficiency. They downloaded data from the alien computers, copied star charts, and gathered intelligence about Dominion operations. Every piece of information would be used to track down other raider fleets. "Why don't you just kill us?" HFY asked. "You could have destroyed all our ships in the first attack." Karen looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because dead pirates can't spread the word. We want every raider in this sector to know what happens when you threaten human families." In the ship's communication room, Chris Taylor finished uploading a special message into the alien communication systems. When the Veilthic ships were repaired, this message would broadcast automatically to every Dominion base and outpost. The message was simple but effective. It contained detailed recordings of the battle, showing how easily human technology had defeated the feared raider fleet. It included the names and locations of every Dominion base that the humans had discovered through their intelligence gathering. Most importantly, it contained a warning. Any Dominion ship that attacked human civilians would face the same fate. The message would spread through the criminal networks of the Outer Rim like a virus, carrying fear and respect for human power. "All teams report." Captain Murphy's voice came through the comm system. "Bridge team complete." Karen reported. "Intelligence gathered and uploaded." "Engineering team complete," Tony Adams said. "We've left their engines functional but installed. Tracking devices they'll never find." "Medical team complete," Dr. Brooks added. "All alien personnel will recover fully, no permanent damage." Captain Murphy's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Excellent work. Return to ship." Mission accomplished. The boarding teams disappeared as quickly as they had arrived, leaving the stunned aliens to wonder if the entire experience had been a nightmare. But the evidence was real. Their computers had been accessed, their secrets stolen, and their reputation destroyed. Captain HFY sat alone on his bridge, staring at the stars. He realized that the humans had given them something worse than death. They had given them the knowledge that they were completely helpless against Earth's true guardians. The black ship faded from view once again, leaving the disabled Veilthic vessels to limp home with their terrible news. 6 months had passed since the battle near the Harrison. In a dark cantina on the edge of Veilthic space, pirates and smugglers gathered to drink and share stories. But tonight, the usual loud talk and laughter was replaced by nervous whispers. Marcus Stone, a human smuggler who had worked these routes for 20 years, sat at his usual table in the corner. He listened to the conversations around him with growing amazement. Every criminal in the sector was talking about the same thing. "I heard they had ships that could turn invisible," said a green-skinned Eltarian trader. 12 Veilthic warships just disappeared. "No," replied a spider-like Nexian pirate. "The ships didn't disappear. They were destroyed by ghosts, human ghosts that live in the darkness between stars." Marcus took a drink of his beer and shook his head. The stories got wilder every time someone told them, but he knew something the others did not. He had been contacted by Captain Sullivan of the Harrison 3 weeks ago. The human captain had told him the real story of what happened that day. At another table, a group of Veilthic raiders sat in silence. They were from Captain HFY's former fleet, the survivors who had made it back to Dominion space. Their leader, Commander Vexter, stared into his drink with hollow eyes. "Tell us again what you saw," demanded a young Corellian pirate who did not believe the stories. Vexter looked up slowly. His gray skin had turned pale, and his yellow eyes seemed empty. "You would not understand. You have never seen true fear. It was just one human ship," the Corellian said. "How dangerous could it be?" The Veilthic commander stood up suddenly, his chair falling backward. His voice was loud enough for everyone in the cantina to hear. One ship destroyed our entire fleet without breaking a sweat. One ship that moved like death itself, striking from shadows we could not see. The cantina became completely quiet. Everyone turned to listen. "The humans did not just defeat us," Vexter continued, his voice shaking. "They played with us. They could have killed us all in the first minute, but they chose to let us live. Do you know why?" No one answered. "So we could come back here and tell you this story. So every pirate, every raider, every criminal in the sector would know the truth. The humans are not like us. They are something else. Something that hunts in the dark and never misses its prey." Vexter walked out of the cantina, leaving behind a room full of frightened criminals. The young Corellian pirate who had questioned him sat frozen in his chair, finally understanding what the others had been trying to tell him. 3 tables away, Marcus Stone finished his drink and left money on the table. As a human, he was no longer welcome in places like this. The other criminals looked at him with fear and suspicion, wondering if he was connected to the ghost ships that haunted their nightmares. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of Veilthic space, Captain HFY sat in his private quarters aboard a new flagship. The Dominion had given him another fleet to command, but he had not left Porton for months. Every time he looked at star charts, he remembered the black ship that had appeared. From nowhere, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kexami, entered his quarters without permission. This would have meant death in the old days, but HFY barely looked up. "Sir, the Council demands to know when we will resume raiding operations," Kexami said. "Our territory is being taken over by other criminal organizations. Let them have it." HFY replied quietly. "Anyone who enters human space will learn the same lesson we did. But sir, we are the Veilthic Dominion. We have ruled this sector for 300 years. HFY finally looked at his officer. His eyes held a madness that had not been there before the encounter with the human ship. "We ruled because no one could challenge us. Now we know there are things in the darkness that make us look like children playing with toys." Kexami left without another word. Later, he would tell other officers about the conversation. Within weeks, the story spread through the entire Dominion fleet. Morale collapsed as even their bravest warriors began to fear shadows in space. Far away, on a frontier world called New Colorado, the refugees from the Harrison were building new homes. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had opened a medical clinic in the main settlement. She often thought about that day when death had seemed certain, and how salvation had come from the darkness. The children who had been on the transport ship were now going to school and making friends. They did not know how close they had come to slavery or death. Their parents had decided not to tell them about the Veilthic raiders or the mysterious black ship. That had saved them, but sometimes, late at night, the adults would gather and talk quietly about what they had witnessed. They would remember the moment when the impossible became real, when humanity's guardians emerged from the void to protect their own. Captain Jake Sullivan had retired from active service and become the settlement's mayor. He kept the emergency communication device that had saved their lives in a place of honor on his desk. Sometimes new settlers would ask about it, and he would tell them it was just an old piece of equipment. But Marcus Stone knew better. When he visited New Colorado to deliver supplies, Sullivan had shown him the device and explained what it really was: a direct line to people who watched over human civilians. In the dangerous parts of space, people who had no names and left no traces, but who would always come when families were in danger. "Do you think they're still out there?" Marcus had asked. Sullivan had smiled and looked up at the night sky. "Somewhere in the darkness, they're watching, and every criminal in the galaxy knows it now." The legend had spread faster than anyone could have imagined. In every spaceport, every trading station, every criminal hideout, the story was told and retold. Details changed with each telling, but the message remained the same. Humanity protected its own, and the price of forgetting that lesson was measured in nightmares that never ended. In the depths of space, where no sensors could detect them, the black ships continued their eternal patrol, silent guardians watching over merchant convoys and refugee transports, making sure that families could travel safely to their new homes. They had no names and no glory, but they had something more important. They had the fear and respect of every predator that stalked the SpaceOrcs. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. You could threaten human ships, steal human cargo, even attack human colonies. But if you threatened human families, human children, human civilians seeking new lives among the stars, then something would come for you from the darkness, something that would make sure you lived long enough to spread the word. They saw a Terran warship once. The survivors whispered in their dreams, and they never forgot the lesson it taught them.